Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Over the years, I've dealt with lots of different people. Two come to mind for this particular episode. There was one woman that I knew or know. She's in the not-for-profit world. And she had a position, the type of work she did in the not-for-profit world is that it wasn't ever really long-term with respect to any one particular not-for-profit. So she found herself kind of between opportunities often. And as much as that was disappointing to her, she always got back on her feet real quickly. It's just, she'd be down. She would, had a lot, this position is no longer there. She'd be available, and somebody would pick her up. And it was like, well, I'd like to say it was like magic, but it wasn't, because her name was Amy. What Amy would do is, whenever once she had a job, she would still be doing the same things that she was doing to get her job. So she was always connected. And I contrast that with another person that I know, and not quite as positive, but at one point he found himself between things. He'd lost a position. He was in banking. He lost a position. And he contacted me and said, geez, I really need to try and get something as quickly as possible. And I'm someone who is connected in lots of ways with lots of people. And I didn't have a job for him. I didn't know somebody who had a job, but I knew people who knew people. And I connected him. And it wasn't terribly quick, but eventually he found a position. And we spoke. He called me when he found a position. And he said, really appreciate what you've done for me. And I went on to share with him, it's like, well, there's really nothing magical about what I've done. I've just kind of built a network. And my network is predicated on the notion that everybody has things in life, everybody needs things in life, and you need to understand those things. And if you're going to be successful in the business world, well, really in the world in general, you always have to be mindful of that. It cannot always be transaction based. You can't just, when you get a job, get in there, roll up your sleeves and just do that job. You need to recognize the very real possibility that that job might not always be there. And so keep yourself networked, find ways you can help other people. There are other people who are in transition, not saying that you need to hire them, but maybe give them encouragement, do this, do that. Keep yourself networked. And this particular individual said, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be more like that. So one, this doesn't happen to me again. And if it does, I'm going to be better situated, similar to my story of Amy. Well, a few years passed and I get a call from the guy and lost his job. Okay, what's your network? Well, I really never took the time to do it. I got busy, I just lost track of doing it. I didn't do it. And so he's starting all over again, right? I mean, he got back into that transaction mentality. I'm trying to do my banking things, whatever the banking things he was selling, loans, getting deposits, checking accounts, whatever it is. He was more of a commercial lender, more of a business banker. And he got, stuck in his old ways and suffered for it. Recently, I listened to the book "The Mountain Is You" by Brianna Wiest, and she talked in the book about the concept of microshifts. And I think the difference between my story of the not-for-profit person, Amy, and the banker is they operated in two very different principles, under two very different approaches to business. The banker was, again, transactional, and Amy was kind of ongoing. I'm always going to be networked. I'm always going to be connected in the not-for-profit community because I recognize that there's always the very real possibility that I might need my network. Whereas the banker was more like, I'll build my network when I need my network. And when he came to the realization, when he came to me the first time, and explained to him, this is how I am. This is how I operate in business. This is how I would operate if I had a career. This is how I advocate operating. Um, he was on board with that, but was unable to implement it. And it's very similar to right around the first of the year when you have people making these New Year's resolutions, and they make these grandiose plans to get themselves in shape, right? And they go to the gym and they bust their butts at the gym for a couple of weeks, and it doesn't last. And what Brianna Weiss talks about in The Mountain Is You, and it's just one aspect of I think to listen to the book, it was I don't know how many hours it was, 5 hours to listen to the book. Very good book. I was on a very long trip, and so it was a great book for me to have and listen to. But in the notion of microshifts is you make small incremental changes. So when you're going to the gym on January 1st, you're not trying to get in shape by January 31st. What you're trying to do is just build a habit of going to the gym, and maybe just going to the gym and being there for 10 minutes. I'm going to go to the gym for 10 minutes a day for 4 days a week. And I'm just going to do something little. And then in February, I'm going to ramp it up a little bit, and I'm going to do this, and you slowly break your pattern of not going to the gym, of, not breaking the sweat. And referring back to the banker, what he did, and I guess shame on me, I should have explained it a little better, or I didn't really even think about it myself, to be honest. It wasn't until I was listening to Brianna Weiss, The Mountain Is You, that it really kind of dawned on me that a lot of times that's what happens with people is, hey, I'm going to start networking, and then they start networking in this big, giant, huge way, and it's too big of a shift for them to hang on to. It's just they just can't sustain it. They don't sustain it, and they get back into their old habits. So rather than breaking this little pattern, slowly working through that self sabotage, and slowly kind of working towards, hey, this is what I want to try and achieve. By the end of January, I will have spent X amount of minutes at the gym, at 10 minutes at crack. I can do that. Instead of I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go to 6 networking events every week, you know what? I'm going to try and hit one networking event this month because I've never gone to these things. I'm just going to search out one, and I'm going to go to it. And I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on myself to meet people or do all the things that I should be doing. I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to meet one person. It might be the person who gives me the name tag. That's it. And it might sound to you like, wow, that sounds like a big waste of time. Yeah, I guess if that's the only thing you ever do, sure it is. But if it helps, if that little micro shift, and it's not easy walking into an event for the first time if you've never done it or you're not used to doing it. It's not easy, but getting comfortable with that level of discomfort is that micro shift that can lead to bigger things. You know what? I'm okay talking to the person who's giving me my name tag. Now I'm going to kind of move beyond to something bigger. I'm going to, whatever it is, I'm going to meet one person at this event. I'm going to follow up with them. I'm going to have coffee. And then go to the next event and you meet another, and you introduce those two people to one another because they don't know each other, and then it starts to snowball. And then these micro shifts all start to accumulate and build on one another. And in time, the size of them, starts to increase. You're totally comfortable going and you're meeting people, and you're 4 months in and 5 or 6 people, and those 5 or 6 people know other people, and next thing you know, you're totally part of that event. You're known for being at that event, and then it's maybe easy to pick up a second event. And so by the end of the year, I'm not really a big fan of going to 6 events a week anyway, but some people do it. But you're doing multiple events over the course of a month, and you can pick and choose what are some of the better events that you want to go to, what productive for you with respect to who you're looking to try and meet. But it all starts with that initial micro shift of just doing something small and getting comfortable with that something small. Think of it in terms of this. I recently talked about the Titanic and the sinking of the Titanic. And so I'm going to talk about battleships, aircraft carriers and battleships. For those ships to turn, for those ships to do a 180, right? We're traveling north, we need to be traveling south. Now, if I'm driving in my car, if I'm walking, it's instantaneously, right? I just plant a foot and I turn and go in the other direction. It's less than a second to do it. In my car, it might take a little bit of time depending upon how fast I'm going, how much space I have to maneuver. But if I'm in an open parking lot, I can make that turn in a matter of seconds. But with a battleship, battleship are huge. Their turning radius is huge. They might be going 25, 30 knots. It's going to take them, depending upon sea conditions, it might take them 5 minutes to maneuver. If they're going at full speed, their turning radius is 800 to 1200 meters. And so that is akin to us changing our networking habits. It's not a quick turnaround. It's not the banker I'm referring to. And again, shame on me. I'm learning all the time. My next piece of advice to him or someone like him is, what's the micro shift? Where do you ultimately want to be? What's that one small step? The one small step that's going to head you in that direction. There's another book out there called Atomic Habits. Same thing, right? Just what's that one small thing that's going to start to turn you in that direction? And you get in the habit of that one small thing, and then you add another little small thing on top of it, another micro shift, and then another micro shift, and then these things start to grow over time. And in time, you are where you need to be. And with respect to networking, you need to be where the Amy's of the world are. The people who are continually networking. It's part of their DNA, it's part of their lifestyle. If you're in business and you're always looking for clients, that's where you need to be. You'll get into patches where you're really busy working on a client, and that's great, but you always need to have something going with respect to building your network, growing your network, honing your network, keeping in contact with your network. So think about that today and answer this one question. What's the one micro shift you're going to undertake that's going to help you become better networked?
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.